according to studies, 1 in 5 Americans cannot afford the prescription medications they need. Prescription prices in this country are dramatically higher than they are in other developed nations, and 2 elected officials have decided to do something about it. Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Khanna have introduced a bill that I would describe as radically readjusting in the right direction the relationship between markets and citizens and big pharma when it comes to getting the medications we need when we need them. Representative Khanna joins us now to talk about that bill. Representative Khanna is, in fact, a member of Congress for California's 17th Congressional District, an office he has held since 2017. He is a Democrat. He is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary in the U.S. Commerce Department under President Obama, and he is, as we mentioned, the co-author of this bill with Bernie Sanders. So first of all, Representative Khanna, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Secondly, just for folks who might not have heard of this bill or might not know any of the details, how would you describe it for our audience?
The bill is very simple. It says Americans shouldn't be paying more for our prescription drugs than those in other industrialized countries. So we look at 5 of the major countries: Britain, France, Japan, Canada, in Germany, and see what the average price is of drugs there, and say that if pharmaceuticals are charging Americans more than that average price, then we open it up to generic competition. So basically, either you have to charge people the average international price, or you lose the monopoly that the government gives you in terms of these extended patent protections, and Americans will be able to get the generic.
You know, one of the things that people have said about, let me rephrase that a little bit. One of the things that pharma industry lobbyists have said about attempts to bring drug prices in some sort of reasonable balance with market forces and affordability and need and all of those things, they keep characterizing it as the oppressive hand of the state somehow restricting somebody's rights somewhere. I'm never sure who, but actually it's my sense that it is in fact the lobbyist-influenced hand of the state that allows them to get away with charging these outrageous prices, and that your bill is a corrective to that. Would you agree with that?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Our bill is actually the market solution. What we're saying is these prices should be in line with the prices in other countries. Why isn't the price higher? It's because our government is distorting the free market and giving the pharmaceuticals a monopoly. It's saying that other companies can't compete with the pharmaceuticals, that they have an exclusive patent on a particular drug. So it's actually state interference that is distorting the market and raising prices. And our bill would say we shouldn't be granting these pharmaceuticals these artificial monopolies if the price is higher than what people are paying in other countries. Now, the pharmaceuticals come back and say, no, we need the money to do research and development. This is just false. If you look at the EBITDA of these pharmaceutical companies, the profits they're making, you will see they're making an extraordinary amount of profits, even after the 20 or so percent they're spending on research and development. So them making less money will just mean that they're getting less money for their executives and stock buybacks. It's not coming out of a research and development budget. Second, of the 210 drugs that were approved between 2010 and 2015, every single drug came because of National Institute of Health spending. It's our tax dollars that are fueling a lot of the innovation. And finally, most of this innovation is being done by startups, not the big pharmaceuticals.
So you have a situation, and again, we're talking with Representative Khanna about the new bill he and Bernie Sanders have introduced to get drug prices back on track. So you're really talking about a situation where we the people contribute to the creation of these pharmaceuticals, to the design of them. We provide the basic research. Then we give a drug company the exclusive right to manufacture and distribute and sell it. And for some magical reason, it always seems to come out that they're charging us twice as much or 50% more or 3 times as much as for the same drug in some other place. So as I understand your bill, it's basically saying if you can't straighten that out, then we'll open it up for other companies to manufacture and distribute and sell this drug. And if they can do it at a lower price than you, then shame on you.
Absolutely. You summarized it exactly correctly. And one point to make is these pharmaceuticals still will have the first mover advantage and a patent protection for a few years because they're getting the initial patent and they're going to be making profits on that. What we're saying is if after it's in the market and if your price is still higher than these other countries after you've enjoyed the patent for a number of years, we're not going to continue to extend the patent. You will lose that patent to generic competition. As it is, these patents shouldn't be indefinite. So it is actually, just to emphasize it, a market solution. And right now the system's not working because of these lobbyists that have co-opted government into giving these patent grants in ways that are fleecing the American people, and other countries' citizens aren't paying that.
Well, and that gets exactly to where I wanted this conversation to go, Representative Khanna, which is you and I spoke for an article I did for The Nation a couple months back,
Yes.
and you had a lot of thoughts about this, and I really appreciated that. And I think it's important for people to understand that we have this idea of the free market in this country, and that's a political talking point and so on. But when we talk about big pharma, we're not talking about a free market. We're talking about it's really a political economy question. There are two lobbyists for every member of Congress, for example, and I don't know if they're assigned to each one of you individually, and you have 2 people following. But whatever it is, or one works a day shift, one works a night shift, but you have two lobbyists for every member of Congress. We have a kind of I would say it's a monstrous system, the original meaning of the word monster, meaning not natural. There's nothing natural about the money that these guys are getting. And I would say your bill, besides doing a lot to get these prices under control, I think there's also a lot of education that the bill provides and opens the door for about how things really work in this country, especially with big pharma. Do you get what I'm driving at?
I do. I appreciate it. And it's not just the pharmaceutical lobbyists. I mean, they engage in misleading PR campaigns, telling Americans that if they don't make these obscene amount of profits, we're not going to be able to develop a next generation of drugs to cure disease, to cure things like Alzheimer's or cancer. And so they play on people's emotions. And really, if we're serious about tackling these diseases, what we need is to double the funding of the National Institute of Health, to increase our funding for university research, to increase the startup activity of having new companies. And I'll tell you, representing Silicon Valley, most people who are investing in these startups aren't looking for excessive profits. They're looking for how many people will use the technology. Venture capitalists bet on things that are not making money if they have large use all the time. I mean, that's how they invested in Facebook or Amazon, who didn't have profits. So the pharmaceuticals have sold a lie to the American public. They are not often doing the research. Often they're acquiring companies that have done most of the technology, and they're largely Wall Street-like entities that engage in marketing and engage in sort of bringing something to the market and advertising. They're not actually doing the drug development, and they're getting the most reward.
Well, you bring up what I think is an extremely important point, Representative Khanna, and that is the financialization of healthcare in this country, the financialization especially of pharmaceutical and medical device and related research. The fact is that, Martin Shkreli was everybody's poster boy for bad pharma, but he's not really the exception, I think, when you look at these companies and the fact that they're managing to the next quarter, they're trying to maximize profits any way they can. So many of their filings for new drugs are just repatents with slight modifications of old drugs so that they can continue to have exclusive rights to it. How do we get that under control? How do we get back to, look, if you're a doctor somewhere and you've got a brilliant idea, the folks who invented insulin for diabetes, if I recall correctly, sold it for $3, $1 for each of them, for the public good. But okay, if somebody invents a new drug and they want to get, well off as a result of that, I don't think most people would object to that. But how do we get the sort of financial predatory aspect out of the drug system?
Well, you're absolutely right. I like the phrase, the financialization of the drug industry. That's exactly what's happened. Look at the executives and the executive teams who are running these pharmaceutical companies. They're not Nobel laureates out of Stanford or MIT. They're not leading researchers. They're stocked with Harvard MBAs and Wharton MBAs who are looking at the bottom line and who are really indifferent about whether it's drugs or whether it's plastics. I mean, they're looking at these as financial companies. So how we change is we've got to really explain who is driving the innovation in this country, and that is NIH, that is the researchers at these leading institutions of higher learning, that is our startups, which are often 3 or 4 people operations or 10 people operations. It's not these large pharmaceuticals. And to the extent large pharmaceuticals are doing some of the work, their research and development budgets have been flat, and most of their profits aren't going to increasing research and development. So I think forcing generic competition and looking at the international price will help make sure that they're not abusing their role in a market economy.
So this bill, and again, we're talking with Representative Khanna, your bill with Senator Sanders clarifies a lot of things for me, which I like. One of the things that it clarifies me is that when it comes to big pharma, predatory capitalism isn't just predatory, it's not even really capitalist, because is that right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is not, this is not some government takeover or socialized medicine. This is saying we want the free market. We want competition. When I go into CVS and I want to buy Melansa or Sudafed, I almost never buy the brand name. I buy the CVS generic version. It's $5 cheaper. What we're saying is we want to make sure that Americans have that opportunity when it comes to Advair, which is a drug for asthma, or when it comes to Humira, a drug for arthritis. They should be able to buy the generic drug. And if you're for competition, which is actually for the market, you should be for this bill.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, and I hope you forgive me for mentioning it, I don't mind socialized medicine, but this ain't it.
Well, I'm for Medicare for all too. I'm just saying this is not bad. I mean, you can, and to the extent point where Donald Trump is proposing a version of this. I mean, it's not nearly as robust, but he's saying in Medicare for certain drugs, let's look at the international price, and if not, let's have generic competition or negotiation. And this is actually anyone who looks at this who isn't in the pockets of pharmaceuticals. And unfortunately, Trump, keeps reversing himself. He puts this out there, and then he meets the pharmaceuticals, and he walks it back. But anyone who looks at this knows that they are just taking advantage of the economy, and it's not a true free market.
Well, I think you and Senator Sanders should tell the president that since he's so great at the art of the deal, and since he so respects the art of the deal, put his weight behind your bill, get the Republicans to help you pass it so that everybody out there can practice the art of the deal. If drug companies can't can't deliver these medications to the public at a price that the public can afford, then we'll find somebody who will.
Yeah, no, look, Senator Sanders and I, we would work with White House. We're not sort of like Mitch McConnell, who says, I don't want the president to get any win politically. This would be one of the most popular things Trump could do. I mean, in a sense, I would dislike it from a political perspective because it would get incredibly popular, but it would actually improve lives. And if he had any sense of wanting to run on the populism he promised, he should get behind this kind of an approach.
Well, I understand you, and I agree with you, and I think that's the right way to approach the President of the United States. As far as the idea of him doing it and then having a surge in popularity, I might suggest that's not our most immediate concern right now. But unfortunately, I know you have to go, but Representative Khanna, this great bill, thanks so much for introducing it with Senator Sanders, and thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for going over it in such detail.
We appreciate it.